created a monster and it will destroy you.
She's alive! Alive!
I am Dracula.
Welcome to the Manor, my friends. A very special episode this week. But first, a question. Beetlejuice, Frankenstein, and Hocus Pocus, what do they all have in common? Well, they are all in David Skal's new book for TCM, Fright Favorites. And this is chock full of 31 of some of my favorite movies, plus some bonuses. So, without further ado, I would like to bring on our guest. It's wonderful to have this guy, too. He was at Gillibration with us in Silver Springs, and I didn't get a real chance to talk to him, so we're going to change that tonight. So let me introduce to you my friend, David J. Skal.
Scott, thank you for having me. It's nice to see you, and no masks.
Yes, no masks.
Oh, we're virtual. We're not even in the same room. So let's stay here for a while.
Yes, and I have to thank you very much for dealing with our technical stuff that we were dealing with last moment. Thank you for being on the show. It is a huge thrill for me. I watched so many of your documentaries on of course, the Universal movies, and then the books that you've written in the past. So it's a thrill to have you on Monster Manor.
Well, thank you very much. I always enjoyed it. I loved Gillibration. I hope we talk about that a little bit. That was such fun, and I'd never seen any of the springs in Florida, and even without the creature, it would have been a treat.
Yes, it really is a beautiful park, and the fact that it was a theme park back when the film was shot, it's kind of gone into the state park system. So it was nice to bring some attention, and we would have done that last year and again this year, but with the pandemic, it just wasn't a good time for that. We couldn't put people at risk like that.
But the water was I've never seen such clear water anywhere on Earth. And obviously, you can see why Universal chose it for the underwater sequences. It's just crystalline. It was. I got to ride one of the glass bottom boats, which was.
Oh yeah.
I'd never done before, so I don't know how I missed on. A lot of people have done that before, but I hadn't, and I enjoyed it. But of course, I got to meet all the fans. I got to spend time with Rico Browning again.
Mm-hmm.
And,
first time in 10 years, wasn't it?
Oh, I know. It's just a couple of years ago. I'd seen him at Pensacon.
That's right.
I'd interviewed him after a screening of Creature. There we are, and I'm Back to the Black Lagoon is one of my favorites of the Universal.
Oh, absolutely.
Things because it was the only one where I got to actually talk to three performers from the actual movie, because it was made in the 50s and not the 30s. And both creatures, Rico and Ben and Julie, and they were just so much fun. And I credit Rico with me finally, a non-swimmer my entire life, at the age of 64, taking swimming lessons, and now I swim every day. And I was really encouraged also by Julie, who she did a rather late in life, she did an arthritis medication commercial showing her swimming. And
Mm,
it came on, and I said, "My God, I know her, and everybody else in the world can swim." And so I got over my fear of the water, and wish I had done it a lot earlier. But
yeah.
fortunately, we've got this wonderful city pool here that is open year round, and they space everybody out, and um, it's uh, it's wonderful. It keeps me sane. I
Yeah.
otherwise doing this, I'm staring at a screen, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well, I mean,
it's gonna stop feeling like like a dystopian science fiction movie sometime this year, I think.
oh,
And
I hope so.
but
Nobody counted on it lasting this long.
yes, everybody wear your masks, get your shots as soon as you can. I got my first shot this week, and it was a bit of a pain in the ass to do, but it's worth it. Just be persistent and check all the different portals and the different hospitals and services, and eventually you will do it.
Yeah. And educate yourself, because so many people, I don't know what it is, they don't even know that sometimes they have to have the follow-up shot, and it's very important to do your first shot and your booster, follow your doctor's orders.
Absolutely, and things are going to get better. Um,
Yes.
you still have to wear the mask. We're not out of the woods until 70% of us have the vaccine. But finally, you can look forward to something. Last
Hmm.
awful on so many levels. It was a
Oh,
horror movie from start to finish.
yeah, yeah, that's the new monster movie, was 2020. So I gotta tell you, this book, Fright Favorites, it hit a chord on so many levels. It was just about I had seen almost every movie in here. Now there were a couple that I didn't, but um, hearing your perspective and the little tidbits that you had in there were amazing. I mean, you pretty much start at the beginning, and it was fantastic. So maybe we could talk a little bit about the first real vampire film. I'm sure that was a huge impact on you. It was a huge impact on me. Nosferatu. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, it's one of the greatest vampire movies. One of the greatest. Maybe some people think it's the best adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was made in 1922 in Germany. It was not an authorized version of Dracula, and in fact, it was a blatant plagiarism. It was a piracy, and the Bram Stoker estate, his wife Florence, his widow, went on the warpath for a number of years. She got all kinds of English lawyers on her side and the British Society of Authors, and they went after the producers of Nosferatu, and in the end, did get the German courts to declare it a plagiarism, and they ordered all of the prints and negatives destroyed. And fortunately, that didn't happen. Otherwise, we wouldn't have
Yeah.
one of the versions of greatest examples of German expressionism uh,
Hmm.
today, and it's a world classic. It's funny, even after Florence Stoker had captured a a print of the film itself, there's no indication that she even asked to watch it, and
Mm.
um, and came very very close to consigning it to the dustbin of history.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I saw it before I saw any other version of Dracula when I was a kid. The Lugosi film was not shown on Cleveland television, and I saw it for the first time at the library where I worked after school, and I ran the audiovisual services, and one of the films they booked in was this half-hour condensation in 16 millimeter of Nosferatu, and it was I watched it several times because I would stay late.
Oh,
but
yeah.
but it was a it is so much. It's even a scarier depiction of Dracula than Stoker describes, but very much in the same vein. He is a completely repulsive character. He gets here you can see the use of shadow and light. That's the hallmark of German expressionism, and a couple of the scariest scenes don't depict Nosferatu at all, just his shadow.
The shadow, yes.
Even though vampires aren't supposed to throw shadows, we have to make allowances for this particular film because it was so effective. But that was made in 1922 in Germany, and it was like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which was made a couple of years earlier. These weren't light entertainment. This wasn't an escapism. These were serious art films, and they intended to make a statement about the First World War, which had totally decimated Germany, and there are just metaphors of the war itself, war as pestilence, war as contagion. Stoker didn't have rats following the vampire everywhere, but he comes into the German town of Bremen like a plague, and the publicity for the film talked about the war itself as a kind of cosmic vampire that had drained the lifeblood of Europe, and so it was a big deal. It the makers should have asked permission or negotiated something, because they ended up going bankrupt during the legal standoff.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. Prana.
Yeah, Prana film. But F.W. Murnau, who directed the film, went on to do some other marvelous films like Sunrise and others. He came to Hollywood. He died just before, right about the same time that Todd Browning's Dracula was being filmed. And it's not known if Universal tapped him, but he was not part of the publicity on the film, although he certainly honed his skills as a director with Nosferatu, and it's just kind of most expressionist films were made indoors with artificial lighting or very controlled lighting and skylights and things, and much of Nosferatu is done on location, and they tinted the scenes, the night scenes in blue, the day scenes in yellows and oranges, and there was a full orchestral accompaniment to it. It was quite. It wasn't the creaky black and white film that we see today. There aren't really any first generation prints left. Universal actually bought out all the rights in it, and they purchased the only print known to be in North America for purposes of destruction, so they could have free title to the copyright. But they actually used some of the film in a short subject called Boo that you can find on some of the Universal discs. I would really track it down, and there are a few, and they do some corny things. They run it backwards and forwards and that, but it is the most crystalline, sharp, perfect, shot yesterday moments from Nosferatu, and you can get a sense of how lovely these films were visually.
Yeah, I'm almost jealous that you and I didn't get to see this in its heyday during the first release. The beauty that would have been, seeing a print, on the big screen back in the day, would have been amazing with the live orchestra and everything. That would have been amazing. Tell me about this.
Yes, this is my the Norton Critical Edition of Dracula. W.W. Norton has been my primary publisher for 30 years now, and one of the most successful things I did for them, I did Hollywood Gothic and The Monster Show, but the Norton Critical Edition of Bram Stoker's novel, we first brought out in centenary of the book's publication in 1997. And Nina Auerbach, the late great academic at the University of Pennsylvania, was my partner on this. And I'm not really an academic, although I seem to play one on TV, and I lots of fan mail addressed to to doctor instead of Mister, and I usually don't correct people, but I do spend a lot of time guest lecturing and guest teaching, generally spending maybe too much time hanging around the schoolyard fence. So anyway, it was my baby. I suggested the idea to Norton, and doing a textbook. The Norton Critical Editions are the go-to texts of choice for most colleges and universities, and so the market for the book renews itself every year, and it's just been selling and selling and selling. And I think the first edition now, it's in 25 years, it has sold about 150,000 copies, which is far beyond anything I've ever done. And so it keeps a small, dependable stream of income. But the Nina passed away a few years ago, and every few decades they like to refresh these books. So they asked me who would be an academic I'd like to team up with, and I chose John Edgar Browning, who's one of the really up and coming Stoker scholars in the United States, if not the world. And we've been friends for a while, and so we kind of rebuilt it from the ground up, and reconsidered every single note, chose many new critical essays, and I think we have created what I always wish I could have found. It's the edition of Dracula that has the widest range of critical interpretations, the most authoritative notes, and I'm not going to touch it again, probably because I won't be around. They want to renew it. So somebody else, perhaps John, he's a lot younger than I am, will team up with somebody. But it'll be out in November, and as you can see, we got Nosferatu right there on the cover. That wonderful portrait of Max Schreck, and it will be doing a lot of publicity in the fall for it. Hopefully, some things in person. There are going to be a couple of conventions, and if they can be safely done with social distancing and whatever we need to do, I would love to do it. And so John and I are standing by. And
I hope so.
It's a pleasure.
We need our monsters.
We're proofreading the final corrections to the manuscript, and they are so thorough with these kinds of books. Grade books often, they're awful these days. The typos and the misspellings and things that go through. But here we also recreated the text exactly as Stoker put it forth in 1897, with a lot of it's amazing because it was never considered a really literary book. Editors over the years and publishers decided to make little improvements and clean up the Stoker's syntax and it just drove you crazy going through this. And so finally we had to compare it line to line to an actual printed copy from 1897, or a facsimile, since you probably spend about $50,000 to buy one these days. And it's really fascinating to know that, for instance, as many people have noticed, British publishing style is different than American these days, and they use single quotation marks instead of double ones, and they don't put punctuation inside of quotation marks, but outside, and that sort of thing. And most editions of Dracula have been that way. And lo and behold, back in the 1890s, British publishing was following the same kind of guidelines and rules that American was. And so I'm sure I'm going to get some flack from people who said this doesn't look like a British text, and yes, it was.
Yes.
I don't
Perhaps
know
truest.
why they abandoned it, but we did keep all of the British spellings and a lot of peculiarities of grammar, things that seem like mistakes, but if you really look them up, you find out no, that they actually did phrase things that way, and they did
Yes.
function. And it's and even some of the typographical ornamentation we put into it, so it feels as close, using modern publishing techniques. We
Right.
didn't read the actual typeface, but it's fun, I hope, and I know that it really truly is the edition of Dracula I've always wanted to see.
Well,
Like all,
it gives you a new reason to read it all over again. If you have read the classic, this kind of gives you the reason to do it again and look at it through those fresh eyes.
yeah, and I think you're going to find a lot of things in the annotations. They're on virtually every page that have never been noticed or commented on before. We're very proud of the new. We're not just rehashing, other people's annotated editions. It really is an original effort, and we're proud of it. Norton should be proud of it, and I hope teachers and students are going to really enjoy it. Anyway, that's November.
Well, we will keep an eye peeled for that. And if you ever need an outlet to come in and plug that book, please give me a call because I would love to hear about that too.
Well, we're probably going to end up doing virtual things again, but we hope you can intersect with it one way or the other.
Hopefully. Yeah. So, that's a good segue, Nosferatu being the pioneer, and then the segue to Dracula in 1931 for Universal. There was so much going on there at the studio with basically the gift of Universal and the production over to Carl Emley Jr. from his dad. And the
Yes,
first thing out of the gate, he goes to, the literary classic Dracula.
and notice
This time,
before you go on, that the picture was just up there wasn't the Lugosi version, but Universal produced a simultaneous Spanish language version of Dracula that I had a lot to do with digging out of its grave and getting onto videotape back in the 90s. And this is Carlos Villarias, Spanish actor, and Lupita Tovar, who was a beautiful ingenue from Mexico, who I was able to meet in the 1980s, and she only passed away recently at the age of 106. Fantastic woman, had fantastic life, and anyway, it's a wonderful footnote to the more familiar Todd Browning Bela Lugosi version. There's
Agreed.
Bela. That's not Carlos.
yes. Yes, he definitely had a distinct look. Both of the Draculas did, but Bela, you gotta love his look. He had such a look of aristocracy.
He was. I only wish they would have. He would have been perfect to wear makeup in the first part of the film, conforming with Stoker's.
Right.
Old man with he had the same. He had the nose and the face and the eyes. He should have had a white mustache and white hair, and then he could have, as in the book, rejuvenated as he came to London.
Right.
Lugosi would have been fantastic had it been done that way, but he really made that part his own, despite all the departures from Stoker. And I can't think of another actor who was so identified with a part that it
Right.
it
From
really-
the stage.
he did it on the stage on Broadway. He other actors toured it around the United States. I met the actor in in England, Raymond Huntley, who originated the part when it was only Hamilton Dean's script, and but he barnstormed the provinces. He really did. Raymond Huntley played the role on stage literally thousands of times. Lugosi didn't. That's kind of a factoid that pops up. Hundreds of times, yes, but not thousands. Raymond Huntley actually did that on both sides of the Atlantic. He turned down the chance to do it on Broadway, and thereby made Lugosi a star. He he felt the money they offered him too little money. I think it was $125 a week, a lot of money in 1927, but not to uproot himself from England and go on the road in America. Lugosi accepted it, I think, for $100 a week, but he made it his own. And that voice that every 10-year-old kid can do an imitation of, even if he's never seen the original movie or knows who Lugosi is. That voice has permeated popular culture and communications.
And about as authentic as you could get. I mean, it was Hungarian. He had that heavy accent. He was from
Transylvania. And the fact that he really, when he did it on the stage, he could barely speak English. And in fact, the producers, he did understand French better than he understood English, and so they directed him in French. But that very deliberate manner of speaking, that we associate with Dracula.
That's good.
It's not just a Hungarian accent. It is, as Lugosi's son told me, my dad told him that he never learned how to think in English, and it's very difficult. No, you're always translating if you don't learn a language when you are very young, and I mean 8, 9, or 10 years old. You're never going to be completely fluent. There's always going to be, and that's why there are so many people who can speak English seemingly perfectly, but they still have a accent there. It's the remnants of this translation. They're hearing something else.
Right.
But it's and it did hamper him later. By the time he was in Hollywood, his English had much improved, but he really preferred to the company of the Hungarian colony in Hollywood. He didn't socialize a lot, and the language barrier probably had a lot to do with it, and probably hampered his career. At least that was what that he just was not out there and visible enough, and that he never personally socialized with him, even once. It was strictly a business relationship.
Right. Well, with the classics, there was such a different feel to that era. Since you did cover it in the book, I was intrigued. You also covered the slasher films. You were fair to all, because I know you're very much like me, that you are more of a classic horror guy, I would assume.
Oh, yeah.
But then you have the slashers of the 70s. Truly, I mean, it was a new time. We had been through, Vietnam and all of that. And then you come to the 70s with things like, the slasher films, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You cover the Halloween films in the book. Do you think that was just a natural, unavoidable change in cinema? Or do you think that we could have done without that new switch where it had to be gory or it had to be more visceral?
Well, I think the screen kind of had to crawl out from under the heavy rock of censorship and restrictions, and arguably they went too far with some of these gruesome films, but it may have been necessary medicine just to liberate the screen. And these days, some of the more impressive independent horror movies
Hmm.
show very, very little. I just reviewed the British film His House about
Hmm.
African refugees in the British housing system who bring a ghost with them, and it harkens back to the days of Val Lewton, because it is not it's not a gruesome film, but it's very, very frightening, because you're completing in the back of your own mind all the scare effects, and it makes proper use of the jump scare, which has been it's become one of the big cliches of horror movies.
Hmm.
At the very end, the hand coming up out of the grave, or the person being suddenly startled by a screeching cat or an owl or something. I mean, it's and everyone laughs afterwards.
Yeah.
In His House, there's only one of those nervous laugh uh, jump scares, and then you are dreading what is to come, and you don't even want to look at the dark areas of the screen because of what might appear there. And it's just a delicious film. I really recommend it.
Yeah, and I know I'm jumping around a bit here. It was one of the films that I hadn't seen yet, but thanks to you, I had to look at it. And it was actually a sidebar because we had seen The Get Out, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal. I had never seen Hereditary, and I was so impressed with the shooting style. I know we're jumping around in the book. This is almost at the end of the book, but how did you feel about his cinematography, his eye for certain scenes, and his camera tricks?
It was. You can praise that film on so many levels, and I really wish Toni Collette had gotten the Oscar. She was nominated. She absolutely deserved it. Um, it would have been a first, for a horror movie too. But this
Hmm.
was one of the best ensemble acting films I've ever seen. It was more. I spent a few decades working in the
Hmm.
professional theater, and it was like that. It was like a seasoned repertory group of actors uh, who just worked together flawlessly. I mean, it was, uh, and I understand that the original cut um, was over 3 hours long, and I hope we'll see that sometime. I hope there'll be a Blu-ray or something. But it is a film that it's it's most startling, because
Yes.
most horror movies have something to do with death, but they never really look at it. Nobody grieves. It's like in
Yes.
whodunits, you know. There's no actual mourning that goes on, even though death is the whole purpose. Not so
Right.
in her. It it's hard to talk about without spoiling too much, but
Oh, I know.
you will not believe what happens about halfway through.
Yes.
And the um, but it's just great that I know there aren't enough distribution outlets for all the great films that are being made these days, and
Hmm.
and digital production, of course, has brought the costs down, that to the point where kids right out of film school can produce extremely polished first features. And
Hmm.
but driving us out of the theaters and back into our humble abodes might be a good
Yes.
thing, because I know um, I've subscribed to so many streaming services now, um, and there's almost nothing you can't access. um, and I still hope theaters are going to come back and thrive in some shape or form, because there is something to be said
Yeah.
about the communal experience. But there are a lot of small films really don't require a big screen and are actually more suited for the living room.
Right, right. Well, I mean, what was it? Peacock. We see that they now have a lot of the classic horror for free, which is wonderful because all of my kids are a bit of an anomaly. We have, I don't know if you remember from the show, Lila was 5 years old. One of her
Yes.
favorite films is the classic Bela Lugosi Dracula. My son absolutely loves. He goes back and forth between The Invisible Man and Hyde. He loves those. So my kids are a little bit of freaks. My favorite was always Frankenstein. And I did want to ask you about your thoughts on the juxtaposition between Frankenstein, because I was so glad you had this in your book. Okay? Young Frankenstein has got to be one of the best, and I wouldn't even say it's a parody, but I want to get your perspective on the juxtaposition between the 1931 classic Frankenstein and, of course, Young Frankenstein with Mel Brooks, probably one of his and Gene Wilder's best movies.
Yeah, it is definitely a parody, but it is a loving parody, and the detail with which they recreated those sets at Universal and the cinematography, it takes on both the original Frankenstein and perhaps even more so Bride of Frankenstein,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of the crown jewel in the Universal horror universe. Of all its fantastic fun, it's kind of like it's Universal's answer to MGM's The Wizard of Oz. It's
Oh,
that,
yeah.
and it's Bride is actually a bit of a parody itself. I mean, there's this underlying black humor that James Whale is very deliberately playing on there that made it all the more delicious for Brooks to have fun with, and
Oh, yeah.
it's just one of the best homages to a classic genre and a classic time in American cinema.
Yeah. And I remember seeing, Young Frankenstein right after it left the theater. It came out on VHS, and my brother ran it home, and we were watching it. The minute you saw the Strickfaden machinery, that became official. It was as real as you could get. I couldn't imagine what it was like standing in those sets with that equipment.
I got a little taste of it when I worked on the production of Gods and Monsters. I was producing
Oh, yeah.
the behind the scenes documentary, and they didn't have any of the original equipment, but they recreated a lot of those Kenneth Strickfaden electrical gizmos, and Brendan Fraser got to pull the lever, and
Mm-hmm.
it was quite a pyrotechnic hazard. I mean, they really kept us all quite a distance. But in Young Frankenstein, they did indeed use. Strickfaden was still alive. I think these things were in his garage in Santa Monica, and
Yeah.
all the sparking, Tesla coils, and they patched them together. And I don't know what happened to the originals. They were on display somewhere, at least a few decades ago, and I hope maybe something will end up in the new Motion Picture Academy Museum. They did acquire Lugosi's Dracula Cape, so it will finally be getting the kind of venue it's always deserved.
Right. Not to sound like Indiana Jones, but stuff like that does belong in a museum. It belongs preserved and just admired for what it was.
It was fun. I got to handle it. I actually got to wear it. Although I'm glad there was nobody with a camera because I
Yes.
wasn't dressed for it. And I'm 5'7" and Lugosi was 6'2", and it looked like one thing on him and on me. But it was the 1931 Cape, and
Yeah.
it has been beautifully restored. The lining, this silver gray satin, had had shredded in places. It just
Mm.
just age, but it's been just beautifully taken care of. And Bela Jr. told me that he didn't even know it originally, that it was from the 1931 film, and that it was just another one of his dad's props. He had several, and so at various times his kids took it to school for show and tell, and I don't know. It's absolutely priceless, and it's going to. I don't know exactly how they're going to display it, but I bet it's going to be nicely spread out.
Yes.
I had to fold it over itself, and to avoid showing off some of the wear and tear. But that won't be the
Mm.
case now. It's fun.
Wow.
I got to try on Christopher Lee's cape too from Horror of Dracula in England once, and it was the same thing. I wouldn't have let somebody take a picture, but it was fun.
So, did you have a
Those things are
favorite?
heavy. Those things are really heavy.
Did you have a favorite?
Of the two capes, well,
Yes.
the Lugosi Cape, obviously, because I've just spent so much more time looking at it.
Oof, yeah.
The um, it's not velvet. It's made out of it's wool.
Like,
It's
yeah, heavy.
it's a heavy wool, like almost a pea coat material, but that gave it that dense black look,
Yeah.
and um, it it was a lot of fun. It didn't have the giant collar that the capes had on stage when Raymond
Hmm.
Hunt and other people did it, because the stand up collar is actually kind of about the size of Lugosi's. Um, on stage, it served a completely different purpose than just to adorn his shoulders. It hid the back of his complete back of his head, so that the actor playing the part could slip out of the cape and seem to disappear in a
Ah.
flash bomb and a blast of smoke near the end. And it's a wonderful trick. If you ever get to see a stage production where they do it full tilt and recreate this illusion, it's quite nifty. But so they brought it back down, but there is a reason that vampires have stand-up collars, and
Yeah.
and it goes back to the theater, not the movies.
Who knew? See, every time I read one of your books or hear you speak, I learn something new. And I know we're coming up on the end of our very fast hour with you. Um, I would like to get your opinion on something, though. Dark Universe. They've been, I guess, some false starts to it, and some, ironic things with the movies, the way that they were. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that it has the potential of maybe, spawning off a new generation of fans of the Universal mythos? Maybe that would be in edition 2 on the Fright Favorites.
Which I hope is coming.
I'm
There's a reason a lot of there's a reason a lot of your favorites aren't in this edition, but I don't think it's possible to recreate the creative circumstances of the studios in the 30s, which there was much tighter control on the development of scripts. Um, Today, each film itself is like a corporate entity unto itself.
Yes.
It and all kinds of things get into. So nobody's trying to create any sense of consistency. Um, and unlike Marvel Comics, the Universal legacy is not quite so firmly established in popular culture, and so they've had it. I didn't hate The Mummy the way a lot of people did. I thought it was actually a pretty entertaining film, and but the critics felt they really had a dump on it, and Bill Condon was going to do Bride of Frankenstein,
Mhm.
and they pulled the plug on it for unknown reasons.
Yeah.
And I would have just killed to see what Bill would have done with that. Because I know it's, I mean, you can see from Gods and Monsters how much you
Yes.
think Bride of Frankenstein. I was there for that scene that took all night to film, that creation scene from Bride of Frankenstein. They did it all with one take, and the camera had to move through this whole soundstage around the actors, and everything had to just click. And it was a wonderful conceit, but something went wrong with every take. And I think that night I left about 6 in the morning, and when they had finally, gotten it right. And but it was so much fun to be on this recreation of the original Universal sets in a 1930s soundstage
Mm.
at Occidental Studios in East LA. Same stage where Whatever Happened to Baby Jane had its
Mhm.
interiors built. And so it was a great experience. But I thought The Invisible Man from Universal, it was farmed out to Blumhouse,
Yes.
but it really worked and it really made money for them. And
That, yeah.
they've revised what they're trying to do with these films. They're letting younger filmmakers kind of have their own way with them and do modernized versions. They are doing a modernized Western version of Dracula. I have no idea what this is going to be like. They also have something in development at Universal about the backstory of Renfield, completely
Mm.
separate. So we'll see. I think these monsters, they keep reinventing themselves, and that's how they stay immortal. I used to always complain that, oh, nobody's ever really done Dracula the way Bram Stoker wrote the book, and
Right.
why don't they just do it the way he wrote it? And because it's been done already. Stoker did it. And
Right.
these monsters take their energy and their longevity and their immortality from adapting and changing and mutating and morphing. And sometimes the results are strange, but
Right.
the is kept in front of the public. And I think this is the way. It's like the oral tradition of folk tales, where
Mhm.
everyone retelling the story would add something to it. It would never be exactly precisely the same.
Mm.
And but as soon as it becomes static, it can die.
Yes. But that's why I'm so grateful for, documentarians and authors like you that continue to show the importance of the classic while still ushering in the new. Another reason that this book, Fright Favorites, is absolutely amazing. Thank you for this book. And I have to say, I know that it was written for the Halloween season. And your forward, the Halloween Hollywood State of Mind, was absolutely beautiful and educational. Enjoyed this book from cover to cover, literally, with the artwork that was in it. I
It's
would say
beautifully
to all
produced.
the people
They
that are,
did a fantastic job of designing and printing it. It was printed overseas, where all the quality color printing is done these days. But it's
right.
really it's a little art book. It's not as big as some coffee table books, but it gets the job done. And it's just I was delighted when they showed me the finished product.
Oh, it's beautiful. When I received it, I even liked the size because I have so many that are larger, and this one is just the perfect size, the perfect depth. The only thing I would suggest is, like I said before, a second edition would be really, really nice. Let's have a part 2 to this.
Well, let's just say there's a detailed proposal has been submitted, and
So a letter writing campaign. We can all send letters to
no,
TCM.
it'll all. I think it might happen because this book has been selling very well,
Yes.
and that finally that's how sequels get made in Hollywood
Yes.
and published
Yes.
anywhere. And
So if our fans and the fans of your book would like to reach out to you and learn more about you, what would be the best way of them doing that?
I'm completely revamping my website, monstershow.net. Please don't go there now because there's just a lot of debris. But in a few weeks, it's going to be quite nice, and I'm adding video and all kinds of multimedia links to it. And so that's one way. And you can also look me up on Facebook. I've got 3,000 Facebook followers now, and we get into some very lively discussions about things. And
I'm one of them.
and I will be back out on the road. I mean, this was the first year. Every Halloween, I'm usually on the road. People
Right.
ask, what are you going to be for Halloween? And I put on my Boris Karloff voice and say, well, I'm going to be the most terrifying monster of them all, a talk show guest. And that's it, because I'm really on the road, and I rarely actually get to do a Halloween party or anything. And this year it was all totally virtual, and a lot of convention appearances and lectures I was going to do all got put on ice. I hope they'll start coming back this year, because I really do like traveling around, not just here but sometimes to Europe. I'm supposed to do something in South America next year, and it's great just to meet people, and once we don't need masks, you can actually see what your readers look like. And
Right.
I'm always I love talking to the readers, and I get one kind of fan mail over and over and over again, and it's said, people made fun of me for liking monsters when I was a kid, but you have validated they were important. They were the most important thing in the world, and you proved it. And I wish I could go back and tell them I told you so. And that's great to hear that sort of thing.
Oh,
People
yeah,
ask,
that's the best
why do
legacy.
you write the books you write? I write the books that I would like to read but can't find anywhere. That's always been the case. From my very first excursion into Dracula, I wanted to know about the backstory, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I didn't know the kind of work that was going to be involved in excavating it, but it's great. I spend a lot of time answering. I try to answer every bit of fan mail I get, and sometimes it gets difficult because somebody's discovering one of my books, even something I wrote 30 years ago, for the first time, and people are even asking me. I did those documentaries for Universal. It's like 25 years ago I started working on those things, and people think I'm still doing them, and I get letters every year. What's next? What are you doing next for Universal? Which are that? So it's kind of ancient history. Thank you, but and those of you who see me now realize that the picture of Dorian Gray effect has taken hold here. I don't look the way I did in those first years when I moved to California, but I'm glad they keep bringing those things out, and they put these special editions, and they put them on Blu-ray, and they'll keep going, and people will still think I'm doing them, and people at some point will even still think I'm alive. So,
Well, that is a wonderful legacy to have.
beyond the grave.
Yes, and hopefully you'll be still speaking to my kids and my grandkids on those antiquated storage devices by then. But Mr. Skal, I know we're coming up on the end of the hour, and I definitely want to be respectful of your time. But thank you. From all of us fans, all of us Monsterkids, thank you for your legacy in educating and continuing to tell people about these films, because they mean so much, not only to horror fans, but to cinemaphiles, period. So I can't thank you enough.
I can't thank you. This was a great interview. I didn't realize it was going to be live, so I didn't put a link on Facebook the way I usually do. Please post this on YouTube or some other venue. I would love to.
Absolutely.
There's so many people I'd love to have seen this. So,
yes, we will definitely. It's simulcast on Facebook and on my YouTube channel. I'll send you all those links, and we'll also, after the broadcast, you can put them in the comments as well yourself if you want to put any kind of comments in there. I'm sure that the fans are going to be checking, and I'm sure they would just be ecstatic that you were there. So absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And the year's just started. It seems like we've been at it for a long time now, but
yes,
it's going to be Halloween soon enough, and it's going to be a better Halloween than last year.
Yes.
Although publishing did pretty well, book sales were up everywhere, including my corner of the world, and I guess because people are going stir crazy and monsters.
Yeah. I love my monsters, and we get to do it on a daily basis, so I count myself blessed. But again, thank you so much for coming into the Manor and sharing your time with us and your stories. To our viewers, please check out Fright Favorites. It is definitely worth every penny. It's available on every major mass retailer, Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes and Noble. But check out this book. Get it. It's cheap. You have no excuse. It's only $24 retail, so you have absolutely no excuse. Check it out. And I would like to thank you again, Mr. Skal. We're going to introduce our I don't know if you've met Boris. You're welcome to hang around and meet Boris. He has an interesting view on monster movies as well because he kind of lives it. But I understand if you have to run. But we're going to introduce... I'm sorry?
You've whet my appetite. Just put me up in the corner somewhere and I'll continue to...
Okay. Well, without further ado, I introduce to you our Boris.
That's how it's going to be, huh, Fence Post? Fresh Maker.
Yes, sir.
So Boris wait in, you don't even have a watch, in the front yard, in the box, for an hour with the note on it, don't come in yet, important guest. And Boris get the butt end of the thing when everybody sign off to go pee and watch, whatever they're going to watch. Maybe buzzer, concentration or something on the buzzer. And Boris got, 5 seconds to do his shtick?
Boris, could you just read the...
No, because Boris, that takes like 10 minutes, and then Boris got to do the thing, and then that's going to cut in the time, and then you're going to black him out. If fooey on you and fooey on the thing. Boris saw... Yes, loud lady. Listen, you put that thing on the bottom. Boris saw that sneaky bastard, and you put the rolling thing on the bottom, so he doesn't have to read it. Ha-ha! Checked with his lawyer.
Read it.
No, you're not going to read it. You know what? Boris, bring it. This is what Boris think of it. This Boris, you know what? Boris going to read. Boris don't got to read this no more. And, it broke.
Really?
Oh, wait. Boris, read it. Oh, it broke again. Shoddy papers. Fence Post send this on the shoddy paper. Said that, and then look at this. Oh, it blew away. What the paper? Hey, what are you doing? Not in the face. Not in the face. Okay, we're gonna play that game. That's the small, strong lady. Okay.
Are we going to read the...
Boris got the headache. Hold on. What do you do?
Are we going to read the disclaimer?
Yes, Boris want to read the disclaimer.
Here.
Boris can't reach his Botany 500 jagged don't stretch. All right. Boris only got one eye. The other eye's looking at what? Oh, great value peas. Been on the face off. All you get is great value peas. Not even the green giant. That's a monster. All right. Blurry, Boris, whatever. You know the deal. Whatever come out of Boris' mouth is Boris' deal. Don't blame fence maker, fence post, the little fence post, the lady, that crazy lady with the bullhorn. Don't blame her. She beat you in the face with a shoe. I don't know where the shoe came from, but she just black. All right, then whatever Boris say, it's Boris's fault. I think he has a concussion. All right, today Boris got something that you don't. Boris has a sponsor. Boris got sponsored by Tammy's Yammies. Tammy's Yammies, all your tuber needs on 441 in going towards the villages. It's next to the Jiggle Hut across from the Circle K. Tammy's Yammies is a little shack, sell yams and other things, and little yams look like people. Tammy's night lady, she gave Boris money to say that. If you go down to 441, you got Tammy's Yammies on the right. You hit the cowboy boot, you went too far. Turn around. And now we go to the special. Like last time, Boris do the fight. What is this? Something busy? Boris, wait. No, what, dude? You're during the fight, all right? He talking to you. The hell with it. They're typing on the computer. So mostly week the Boris do the fight with the Frankenstein and the other guy, right? The mummy. So this week, Boris figure who gonna win in another fight because he sit on the toilet, he bored, and he would say, "What about the Dracula and the Wolfman?" Really? Dracula, Lord of Darkness, and the Wolfman, Lord of Hairy Butts, the Feral Man. So last time Boris only talked about it, but in improv, which you read the book about this, as improv, you don't do it, you show it. So this week, Boris got puppets. Boris got the little puppets. Then they showed the fish fight. In this corner, standing about 5'9", is the Hungarian mastermind, the Bela Lugosi, as the Dracula. He got the spooky eye vision, make you do stuff. When he put the cape up like this, he like, do thing. And then normally, if this like Bud Lou Costello, that, yes, I do thing. And then, that's fine. Or he strangle you, he turn into a bat or a wolf or smoke. Like Dracula vape. And then in this corner, it's about the 6 foot, not Lon Chaney Jr., is that Lon Chaney? Fence maker. Who's the Lon Chaney Jr.? Okay, Lon Chaney Jr., the angsty werewolf. He's the first angsty werewolf. I don't want to be a werewolf. And he sit there in the face. This is about 6'2", about 190 pounds of feral beast. So here you go. Dracula, like it's a nice full moon. Dracula had to take a walk. And he's like, oh, but I'm going to drink some blood. And then the werewolf are hanging out because it's a full moon. And he's all angsty, like, I don't want to be a werewolf. And then the werewolf smelled the Dracula. And he ran over to the Dracula, and Dracula like, I don't want none of this crap. And he's like, well, you got crap. He says, well, you gonna bring it? And he says, I bring it. And then the werewolf like, fine, you do it first. So Dracula put the cape up. You gotta hold on, put it down. Put the cape, don't fall. Stay there. Put the cape up, and then he does the thing with the hand. Whoa, you're not gonna do nothing. The werewolf's like, you kidding? He's a werewolf. I'm a feral energy. I'm like the moon. And he's like, you kidding, right? And the werewolf come over, and he just blap, and punch Dracula in the face. Dracula don't like that, so he come over and he start to choke the werewolf, but the werewolf got the scratchy claws, he scratched the face, and Dracula like, all right, I'm out. But Dracula, if you ever see The Incredibles, Dracula got the cape. No capes. So the werewolf grabbed the cape, spin him around a little bit, and then throw him down. And Dracula like, oh, it's on. So he gonna go kick him in the wolf nards, but the wolfman jumped back because he saw the movie. And then the werewolf gonna like get on him like the little producer done climb Boris and just windmill on him. And Dracula like, the heck with this, I'm turning into a bat. Let's make him turn into a bat. Put the cape on like this. And he's like, okay, I'm leaving. But the werewolf is Ozzy Osbourne fan. He grab him and he bite the face off. And then, they never eat the head. And decapitate the Dracula. And the werewolf, ooh, and then he run over and, he go to drink something at Trader Vic's because it has perfect. And that's the end of the fight. Werewolf won, Dracula nothing. And also the fight was sponsored by Murray's House of Shovels. Murray's House of Shovels, we can dig it.
Thank you for your insight, Boris.
You're welcome.
Any hate mail?
His
What about, we're going to have more of this, I guess? Maybe.
You need them more action figures. Boris stole them out the counter over there.
Wait, what? Those are mine?
Yes, those are yours. Boris, you don't pay Boris enough to buy action figures.
Those are collectibles.
I know, they're nice. Look. And you know, you could tell quality because this is Dracula. If you see the movie, Dracula has the silver lining in the cape. And in the movie, Dracula have a silver lining. And everybody think Dracula got the red lining. Nope, that's a falsehood. It's the silver lining. When you go like coming down the children of the night, the world fell down the stairs. That was nice. The werewolf, on the other hand, he looked like a lumberjack. Because he's like, I am a lumberjack, okay. Because the Lon Chaney Jr. have a black shirt.
Those are collectibles. Before we destroy the collectibles, would you care to introduce maybe the next guest that we have coming on, please?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Your Highness, Lordship. We're going to make Boris... Excuse him. He's choked up with enthusiasm. Next week, horror icon, the movie star, and the video person, Michael Betterman, going to be on the show. Well, virtually on the show. He's going to be there from Mansion Berryman, and he's going to talk about his career in the horror movies, in the television, and what Motley Crue really smell like. Because he was in a couple Motley Crue, and he was also in the Ramones video. And Boris is going to be here. So what are you swinging your hand like a lasso for? You don't want to take 2 hours for the show.
We're ready to wrap up, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. Mister, I come in the thing and you sitting there. There's a book for $25. And, buy my book. I'm Scott Fenstermaker. I was on the face-off. I made the faces. Fine. Boris got this 10 minutes. Again, go to Tammy's Yammies on Route 441 from between Bellevue and the Villages. Next week, Michael Berryman. That's the big one. Tell your friends. And if you don't like your friends, tell your enemies because then they waste internet looking to see what goes on. So Boris is going to sign off now from the Monster Manor. And remember, what did Boris say? It's Boris's fault. Send the email to Boris. He's going to ignore it anyway. But Boris got to go now. The master at the roller derby, and got to pick him up. So you want to roll the credits, little violent lady? See you later next week. That was a good show. It's a very good show. Get this piece. Get this piece of drink. What? What? What are you doing? Oops. What are you doing? It's over. Show over. Go home. Do something. Turn on TV. Watch something. 18. Blossom. Just go. You can't stay here. Boris can't even stay here. But they already left, so Boris is going to steal some out of the fridge and pretty much head out. Good night, everybody.